Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and we are on episode 258. And today I'm going to take you behind the scenes and share what went wrong, a business case study with my dance studio. So if you know me, I'm going to share an update on that. If you don't know me and you're just curious about the business case study, if you're watching on YouTube, then you can just fast forward to the next chapter. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, iHeartMusic, you can look at the show notes and it will tell you the timestamp to move on to the business case study. But for those of you who are on my newsletter list, you know that my dance studio recently closed. If you are not on my newsletter list, you can get on there by going to heatherjoyhubbard.com/subscribe. I share things there that I don't share on the podcast or social media. And one of the things that I had shared was at the end of May, the dance studio that I went to like 4 times a week closed abruptly with like 3 or 4 days notice. And I was like, what am I going to do? Because it was my outlet for exercising. It was my outlet for creativity and expansion and just being able to get outside of my head. It truly was what has kept me sane. And it went away. And so the update is I've had a few people be like, anytime I talk to someone, they're like, did you find a new dance studio? I did. It's not far from my house. And it's actually the Nashville Ballet, but they have a class called Dance Fix. It's hard. It's really, really hard, but there's a lot of people that go to it. So it's a lot of fun. It's got great energy, but they do 10 dances every class, but they only teach one every 2 weeks. So like a new one, like one is coming out and a new one is coming in every 2 weeks. If you are new, you're only learning one of the 10 dances. So you just have to do this choreography without knowing what you're doing. They don't provide video. There's no, like, you're just good luck, have fun. And so it's been such an interesting thing to do because number one, you definitely cannot think about anything for an entire hour because you're just trying to figure out like, what are we even doing? You look a bit like a fool because there are like 30, 40 other people in the class who've maybe been going for the whole time. So they know all of the choreography and you're like, and you're just like back there, like flailing around trying to figure out what's next. And it, you know, I've said this a million times, but as a high achiever, it's really hard to be bad at something or to be a beginner at something. So it's been really, really good for me because it's always good to put yourself in those situations. So I found out about it and I've been going to it since end of June. I felt like for 3 weeks, I was just trying to do it at home and that sucked. So I've now been doing it for at least a month and I definitely am learning some things. I'm better than I was, but I got a long way to go. Also, I think a lot of it is based on ballet principles and that's like the one dance I never took that. So even when they call out things, I don't know what it means. So I don't know what we're doing, but I'm having a lot of fun and I'm moving my body. So I do like that 3 days a week. So that is the dance update. Okay, let's get into the actual case study. So the dance studio that I was going to was Kinrgy, and maybe you've heard of Kinrgy. It's by Julianne Hough, and I don't know what year she started it. I learned about it in 2020, So maybe that's when she started it, was during COVID. But I actually did it for a trial a few months and I loved it during COVID. They would do like occasional Zoom calls where we would get together and connect and just play and do creative fun things. And I really enjoyed that. And then they would have meditation, more like yoga type movements, mindful movements. And then there was dance. It was just a lot of good stuff. But again, as soon as I'm not big on the doing things at home. I like the community aspect. And so I only did that for a few months. Now, I had previously been part of a studio. It was actually the same location in Nashville called AKT, which I think Anna Kaiser Technique is what that was called. So she was out of New York. And then I think they franchised it so all of these different locations could have an AKT. And one opened up in Nashville, very close to where I live. I think I was a founding member there because I got an ad and was like, I would love to dance in person. This sounds great. And their dance class was my favorite. They had a few other like sculpting, cardio. It was definitely more fitness based, but it gave me an outlet and I did that for like 3 days a week. And then my instructor got a hernia and they didn't have a replacement, or the replacement that came in was only on like certain days or times, which were times that didn't work for me. And so I just stopped going, and which wasn't great for my physical health, but it was even more impactful to my emotional health. And so there came a point when I was just like, I have got to find an alternative. And so I started searching. And by the way, I'm sharing this background because it relates to the case study. I want you to understand why clients show up, how you get a business off the ground, and how you totally mess it up and have to close it quickly. So this background is important. So that was how I found this studio, was doing the studio, and then stopped going. And then was like, I wonder if they've got these classes again. I got to find something else. Maybe they've got better availability now. Like, what's going on? So I went to their website and it wasn't working and I was confused. And the app wasn't showing like any availability for classes. And also the social media, like when I went to it, it said Kinrgy. And I was just like, wait, what? So I had to do some research and found out that AKT went bankrupt. I think there might have been like some kind of business dispute, licensing dispute with Anna Kaiser and the company who had taken over AKT. And so all of these studios abruptly closed throughout the country. And I don't know the full story behind it, but a few of those studios decided to become studios for Kinrgy. Now, like I said, Kinrgy, Julianne Hough, and online only, but she was then opening some studios. And these studios were all previously AKT studios. And so I think that the fitness company who was like that was licensing the AKT, they, I guess, like got Julianne to agree to let's test this out with Kinrgy. And so it was the Nashville studio. I think there was a studio, was it in Washington? Like in the tech area, maybe, and in LA. So those were the three studios that they were going to do first. And I think they started those maybe last October. And the one in Washington closed by March or April. And then the one in Nashville closed in May. I have no idea what's going on with the LA one. So these were, I don't know the legal setup, but I assume that they were franchises. They were independently owned and operated. So the same people who owned the AKT studio here in Nashville owned the Kinrgy studio in Nashville. So I just happened to be looking at like, what's AK doing? Can I get back in? Are there other resources? Because I had tried some other things. I'd been going to the Y and doing dance there, and it just wasn't the same. And so I saw that they were moving to Kinrgy. I saw that they were going to be opening up doing Julian's stuff. And I remembered it from the web and was like, oh, great, perfect. This works out for me. And so I started following them again. And because I needed and wanted this service and could not find the service around me, I was anxiously awaiting when they were going to be available and open. So they had put on social media that they were doing community classes. These were free classes where anyone could show up and dance for free while their new instructors coming on were basically being certified. So I thought, perfect, I'll go. I go and I'm like, when is this opening? How do I sign up? None of that was shared at the community dance. Let me just share that. Again, I was just an eager buyer waiting for them to open because I knew I was looking for this service. So online, they ended up putting a link because I was digging, they weren't really promoting a pre sale. And so I went ahead and signed up as a pre sale founding member where it was a flat fee for the entire month. So they started offering classes in, I think, like October. And so from October to December, I went to the classes that were available. There weren't a ton at that time, but I would pick what I wanted to do. I wasn't doing them all. And I was always the only person there. Always. Like it was just me. And in the studio, there would be like, for like, I swear it was like 2 months, there was a ladder. And I was like, and I would ask the instructors, I'm like, what is this ladder? Like, are we putting the ladder up? Like, what are we doing with this ladder? Why is the ladder in the studio? Like, there would be like, it would be a little dirty. And they were like, well, we're still building out the studio. And I'm like, okay, but like, where are the other members? And so I just assumed that the other members were like maybe doing the other classes. But no, I think I was the only member. I was the only member. Um, and so that went on. And I remember asking the instructors, I'm like, what's the marketing plan? What's the sales plan? Because from a perfectly selfish place, I was thinking there's no way that this studio is going to stay in business. Like this is going to go under and I'm going to be right back where I was, having nowhere to dance when I desperately need and want a place to dance. The answer really was there was not a marketing and a sales plan. So what I want to share with you is all of the things that I watched them invest in and all of the things I watched them not invest in. And this is going to be super helpful for whether you've got a service business, retail business that's going to share the mistakes that they made that I witnessed. Now, again, I'm not in their business. I have not talked to the owners. I don't know their perspective. I'm telling you this as an outsider and as a customer from my perspective and what I see. Obviously, I'm also a business strategist, so they're not just lay opinions, but this is not from an insider perspective. This is my outsider perspective. So here's what they invested in. They spent a lot of time and money, one, hiring workers. So at the beginning, there were probably 4 or 5 dance instructors, and these dance instructors had to be certified in the Kinrgy method. I don't know how they paid the instructors, but obviously they had to go through the time, energy, and effort to do the interviews, to get them lined up, to actually then get them to be able to do the classes, to do the certifications, to have the community stuff. I mean, obviously, if you're going to have a dance studio, you need instructors, but they invested in that very, very early on. They also had an app. Now, again, I don't know who invested in the app or what that looked like, but there was an app to do all of the scheduling. They continued to maintain the social media and they were posting in different times. They would post more than others, but they were posting on social media. They were running Facebook and Instagram ads because I would see them. I think after I visited, I started getting retargeting. So I would see the ads that they were running for the studio. It looked like, I think it was like you clicked on it, like it was a message, and you put in your, it would be like a, for any of you who run ads, it was like a lead ad where you put in your name and your email and your phone number, and they would contact you. And basically, it just put you on an email when I did it that said, we'll reach out when the studio is open. And they did reach out when the studio was open one time. That was that was what they did. I'll get more into that later. That I saw. Maybe there was more going on. I don't think so though, because I was the only one dancing. Um, they built out the studio. So there was already a studio. It was an AK2 AKT studio, but I could tell they spent a lot of money transforming it. So they repainted the entire inside of the space. They put up, obviously, like the logo and the signage had to change. They had curtains that weren't there before, and they put in like the entire front part. They put in it was fake, but still, like they put up, like it was all greenery on the wall. That probably has a name, and I don't know the name of it. And they put in like a water feature with the logo. That could not have been cheap. They started building out again when I was the only person dancing. They were still building out the front part. And so they were acquiring merchandise, not just Kinrgy branded merchandise, but also there were like candles and malas, water bottles, socks. So they're acquiring merchandise to sell in a retail environment. And they had like really nice things. Like they had like a little refrigerator with like waters and drinks that you could buy. And they had nice towels that would be wet for you. Um, After you were sweaty dancing, they had like the baskets. Like they did a lot of really nice things. Um, and they had, let's see, I guess they didn't put in those lockers. They just moved them, but they moved things around, right? So they're totally redoing the thing. They put in brand new lighting because they wanted lighting that would have different colors. And so I know a lot they spent, I can only imagine what they spent on, because it took a while, getting all of the new lighting set up. So there was a lot of money put into the physical space, the physical infrastructure. Clearly, they're continuing to pay rent on the same space that they already had. And I'm trying to think. I think that they had like a manager. They would have people come in to run the front desk. Oddly, it was never open except for when there was a class, from what I could tell. So that retail merch environment was really only available for people taking the class or me taking the class. And I didn't buy any merchandise. So I think their inventory sat there for a long time. Oh, also, they put in this like really fancy, I don't even know what it was, like a screen TV LED thing that was constantly portraying on the outside, because it's like a shopping center where lots of people walk by to other restaurants and stuff, which showed Julianne Hough and others like in the studio. But it was a very high end thing where they're constantly showing like what it looks like to come into that space. Although I will say what was portrayed on that was not, in my mind, similar to what we actually did in the dance class. Again, that'll go to the mistakes, but I'm just setting the groundwork for where they did invest. Okay, here's what they did not invest in. They did not invest, from what I could tell. Again, I don't know. I was not on the inside. From what I could tell, they did not invest in media. They did not invest in publicity. They did not invest in outreach. They did not have a nurture sequence. They were running ads, but they didn't actually have a funnel or a system in place to convert those leads. They were not focused on marketing and sales at all. To my knowledge, I don't know what their marketing and sales plan was because I never witnessed any marketing or sales other than the Facebook ads that led to a single email, or just the storefront. Like if people walked by, like and saw that LED light, and they'd have like a little sign that said, Kinrgy now open. Um, like that was it. That was it. So I actually see this with a lot of my clients, and I made this mistake once with a project before as well. So there's no shame. I think it's just sometimes we get into such a logical perfectionist manner that we focus on the wrong things in the wrong order. And the problem with that is businesses fail when we do this out of order and we don't do it in the right way. They closed by May, right? Now, by the way, I should mention, so in January they had a grand opening and I was like, "Oh, I thought that was I thought the opening was October." Like I've been paying you and you've been paying your instructors and like there's been all that like it's been here and open for like 3 months, but there was a grand opening in January. They had a big push with that. And it definitely got more people in, but not enough. They also had, so Julianne came in and they had an event, but you had to like pay to do it with her. And I was like, I worked with a lot of entertainers in the past, celebrities in the past as an entertainment attorney. So I'm like, I don't have to meet people. I'm not paying to come into a class where I'm already paying to be a member, whatever. So I think a lot of people showed up for that that then didn't convert. But that goes to one of the mistakes. So I'll start with that and then we'll go to the others. So I don't know how the licensing structure was set up with Julianne, but the fact that Kinrgy, the studio in Washington and the studio in Nashville, both went under in less than a year tells me that there was something not working right from the perspective of either the fees that had to get paid up or in that brand connection. So I think that's an example that sometimes we can say yes to opportunities, but if we're not fully invested or if the brands aren't fully connected, then it just isn't going to take off. So sometimes when we try to scale, things break. Maybe an online business shouldn't be having in person studios. I don't know. I don't know. It's just something to look at, something to consider. Again, I don't know what's happening with the LA studio. But the other piece is all of the social media and the outreach that they did, and even like the video that was in the wall, it was all based upon Julianne Hough. And a lot of people who know her from Dancing with the Stars. And a lot of people who watch Dancing with the Stars are not dancers and they have no interest in dancing. And then you've got this like Kinrgy online format, which is based upon 4 elements: fire, earth, water, and air, I think. I could care less about the elements. I just wanted to dance. So if you're going to talk about Julianne Hough and if you're going to talk about the 4 elements, you've got to really target your ads and your outreach to people who are into those concepts and into her. And they didn't do that well because a lot of the people who actually ended up coming to Kinrgy and who kept showing up to Kinrgy, they weren't coming because of Julianne. They weren't coming because of the water, earth, and fire. They were coming because they liked the community, they liked the dance, they liked that aspect. But none of the marketing or sales really focused on it from that perspective. So when you've got a lot of people in these like brown neutral clothing and like it's kind of mindful and it looks like you're doing this almost like meditative movement, or like people aren't like, that's a very specific person that you're trying to attract. And I never saw that they were actually trying to specifically attract that clientele. And the clientele who was coming in was not coming for that reason. And they never really leaned into the people who were showing up. Now, they could have done whatever they wanted, but the point to this is you have to know who your ideal customer is. You have to be out there reaching out to that customer and speaking to them in a very consistent way. And that did not happen. Also, you have to nurture them and educate them on something that's going to interest them. You have to talk to the clients about who they are. And one of the mistakes that I saw was they basically just kept talking about Julianne and they kept talking about these 4 elements. most people aren't going to come and dance at a studio because of Julianne. Most people aren't going to come and dance at a studio because of Four Elements. You've got to talk about their pain points, and they never talk to the pain points. So if the pain point is you want an outlet to be expressive, if the pain point is you can't find a dance studio when you're not a professional dancer, but you love to move your body, that can be a pain point. If it's you're looking for a way to exercise and have fitness that is fun, that does not feel like a chore, that can be a pain point. Not I never saw one time them addressing a pain point. And so they were just trying to find people who would be open to a concept of Julianne. And she's an amazing person, right? Like she's awesome. But even with celebrities, and I think you can see this with like, I think Beyonce had a few different times, like some of her diets or nutrition or whatever else. Just because you're a celebrity doesn't mean people will buy your things. It certainly doesn't hurt in terms of having brand recognition. But people aren't going to buy a service and product connected to a celebrity just because of the celebrity. Like the service or product has to be good. And their service and product was good, but there was a disconnect with why people were showing up versus what their marketing and sales looked like. Now, let's talk about those ads because they were running ads, but then we're just sending a single email saying we're open. And so really so if you know someone's pain point, you've got to tap into that over and over and over again. You've got to talk about it over and over and over again. There's actually a lot of different research out there that talks about how many touch points you need with someone before they'll convert. And it's all over the place. So I'm not going to tell you what I think it is, but I will say it's a lot. It's way more than one. And even I sometimes I'm like, well, I don't want to bore people with, sending too many emails. But the truth is, you have to keep doing outreach. No one ever comes the first time. It's often outreach, 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 and then individual outreach, follow up. So you really have to create that relationship and nurture. And so that did not happen at all. It did not happen at all. And I think that it's a huge mistake that we make, that we assume if I build it, they will come. Or if I post about it one time, they will come. Or if they raise their hand and I send them one email, they will come. No, we have to put ourselves out there over and over and over and over again. And even when there's foot traffic, you can't just rely upon a sign. You have to be proactive. You can't assume that just because you have a website on the internet that people are going to stop by, or just because you have social media, people are going to see it and stop by. It takes so much more than that. And that was completely missing. They did not invest in any kind of nurture or outreach strategy. And by the way, you don't always have to have media or publicity, but given Julianne's stature, it would have been so easy to actually get that, but using it strategically, right? Like she's the foot in the door, but then be super strategic about how you set it up to bring the right people in and make sure that you've really got your messaging dialed in. Again, no one cares about earth, water, fire, and air. So is it that you're wanting people who are spiritual? Are you wanting people who are dancers? Are you wanting people who do yoga and meditate and Pilates, but want a new form of expression? They were not clear on who their ideal audience was. I suspect, I could be wrong, that Kinrgy Online is super clear about their ideal client, but that person may not be the same person that shows up to a studio. The person who shows up for an online class membership may not be the same person who's going to show up to an in-person studio. And I don't know that they built that out. From my perspective, they did not have an ideal client and they were not speaking to that ideal client. But if you have the ability to be, because I was like, why are you not in Nashville lifestyle, right? Like they were in a wealthy area. That's where the studio was. And given when they were doing the classes, the times of day, you're basically, in my mind, you were looking at people who are in college or in grad school. You were looking at people who maybe worked jobs where they had several off during the week, or they were remote workers, or they're stay-at-home moms. There's a lot of those in this area. So like that could have been a good opportunity for them. And what you have to do is reverse engineer, where are those people hanging out? Where are they already stopping by? So, there was a Trader Joe's in that shopping center. As opposed to waiting for someone to walk by, it would have been a great thing for them to actually have outreach up there. Like find other people who have the most traffic that are already identifying your people. I would go to Trader Joe's often and I would, be a sweaty mess. And, they always want to chat there. And I'm like, I can't think. I just worked out. And they'll be like, where do you work out? And I'm like, Kinrgy. And they're like, I've never heard of it. And it was in literally the same little shopping center. So this just goes to show you can't assume people are seeing your sign and know what the hell you're offering. You have to really get out there. They could have joined up with yoga studios or done other things like that. There's so many different organizations. But again, like we actually have media, we have podcasts, we have influencers here, we have magazines here. They weren't doing any of that. And they easily could have with Julianne's name. So, how can you apply this to your own business? Well, if you are starting a business or you are new in business, just know that you have to put your offer and your client first and foremost. That has to come first. If you spend all of your money in building out your website, getting your fonts, getting your colors, getting your logos, getting your business cards, getting your, maybe you have office space, maybe you're in your own home, but if you spend all of your money on that stuff because you think that that is what's necessary to attract people, you're going in the wrong order. Unless you have like huge cash reserves, unless you have someone who is backing you that is happy for you to like set up this awesome business, you are spending your time, money, and resources on the wrong things in the wrong order. Because by doing it that way, you're thinking, if I have it all perfect, then people will just naturally show up. And that's not true. That's not true. Kinrgy was an amazing studio, and people were not showing up because they didn't know about it. The other thing that I see people doing, it's the perfect systems. They want to build out the perfect team, the perfect systems before they really focus on the launch or the marketing or the sales, because they're worried that they'll then get so busy with sales that they then can't keep up. But if the sales then don't come in, it was all for nothing. And cash flow is a real thing in a business, which is why you've got to make sure that you've got revenue coming in to pay for all of those expenses. Same with the team. If you're going to have a bunch of employees, if you're going to have all of these roles, you have to have revenue coming in to pay for them. And again, I have done this too. I have made this mistake as well. It is so easy for perfectionists to get in this mode. It is not a good way to approach a business unless, again, you're a huge company or a startup with a ton of funds to just spend it at will. So what do you need to focus on? The same things that they should have focused on. You need to have your offer dialed in. You need to have your ideal customer dialed in. You need to have your messaging dialed in. And then you need to be out there selling, not just marketing, selling. Selling is far more important than marketing. You need to be selling, selling, selling. You need to be getting people in the door. One of the things that you're going to learn is when people come in the door, like I was there for months and there was, walking around a ladder. People who show up early on, they're not actually there for all the pretty things. And they understand that you're building. And if you ask them for feedback, if you ask them questions, they will give it to you and they will feel invested in the company. I will tell you, I was there 3 months, and the instructors were amazing. They asked me questions all the time, but the instructors weren't driving the business model, right? Like they weren't making the decisions related to marketing and sales, or even customer service, right? Like that wasn't their role. The business owners, the managers, they easily could have come to me and asked me for feedback as to why was I there. Anyone else that was coming, especially like early in January, like, why are you coming? What is making you attracted to this? And that could have helped give them information. They could have changed things accordingly. They could have, like, what made you decide to buy? Like, there was so much information to be gained. So when you invest in your ideal client, your offer, your messaging, it allows you to go out to sell those spots to the first people, get the feedback, refine it. And then once you have the consistent revenue, once you have an offer that is selling that you know there's demand for, that is when you take that money and you invest in the infrastructure. That is when you invest in the branding. That is when you invest in the website. That is when you invest in the copy. Because what you do before you get customers is going to look very different than once you get the customers and make adjustments. That's when you double down. When you go out of order, you're going to really struggle to stay afloat, and you're never going to get the traction you're looking for. And you're not going to help people, because at the end of the day, isn't that what the business is for? It's to help people. So if you go under, you didn't help them, you didn't help yourself. And so I just hope that that can be a lesson for all of us who are in business, that we need to be investing in the right things and the right order. And we never, ever should take our eye off the ball, that revenue is the most important piece. Because if you don't have revenue, you can't keep the lights open for those clients who need and want you. You can't have an impact or make a difference in that business, and you can't pay your employees. So stop investing in all the bright, shiny objects. Those are a distraction. Invest in the offer and getting people in the door and really dialing in your message and getting a client base first and foremost. Okay, I hope that has been helpful. If you could use support in business strategy, doing things in the right order, definitely go check out. I've got both the Growth Accelerator Incubator, and I have my 2026 All In Mastermind. So one is 6 weeks, one is a full year. Either way, I would love to work with you if it feels like a good fit. You can go check those offers out at heatherjoyhubbard.com, or you can reach out on Instagram at heatherjoyhubbard. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.